The last question here, I guess would be a little bit controversial, in my opinion. I want you to, I'm going to throw you a softball and you can hit it as hard as you want. But if I'm a real estate agent right now, am I gonna be better off working for a company like yours, or am I going to be better off working for Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker? So you have these huge national brands that obviously that brings X amount of value. And then you have these boutiques that I'm starting to kind of fall in love with, which is the Jay Thompson at the head of it, the Christina Wise, and then absolutely providing the tools and resources that their agents need to be successful in a tough market. So
Yep.
what's your thoughts on that whole conversation? Because this industry, I don't know the numbers, but probably what, 80, 90% of agents are working for like one of like 4 or 5 companies.
That's a great question, and obviously, I have to preface it. I'm a little biased. Okay, I own a boutique brokerage, so obviously that's the way I lean. But I'll tell you why. Because I've talked about this a lot. I talked about a lot with Christina and with people like Michael McClure, Professional One. I've written blog posts about it. There is no question in my mind that the average or typical real estate buyer or seller gives a crap about the brokerage, the name of the brokerage, the brand. And that number is backed up by studies that NAR's done. There was a study out earlier this year where they survey a bunch of people, and it was something like 3 or 4% of the people said they picked their agent because of the brokerage that they were associated with. Okay, well, that leaves 93 or 94% of people that don't give a damn
Yeah.
what the brokerage is. And there's nothing against Keller Williams or Century 21 or Colwell or any of those guys. But the way real estate reality is today, I don't understand what the value add is for these big brokerages from the consumer's perspective. Stop a guy on the street and say, "Have you heard of Keller Williams?" They'll go, "Sure." "Have you heard of Remax?" "Sure." "Have you heard of Century 21?" "Yeah, sure." "Have you heard of Thompson's Realty?" They'll go, "No." But then ask them, "Okay, what's the difference between Remax and Century 21 and Keller Williams?" And they'll go, "I don't know,
Yeah.
nothing. It's just a real estate brokerage."
The colors.
The color, the balloons, or
Yeah.
the gold jacket, or
Yeah.
the rock, whatever it is, but that means nothing to the consumer. And those are my customers. I mean, you could argue that agents are my customers as a broker, but really, home buyers and sellers are my customers. They just don't care. But there's no question in my mind that an agent starting out in a boutique brokerage can be insanely successful. Sure, they can be insanely successful at Remax too. But I've got every one of my agents, every single one of them, and granted it's only 20, every one of them came from a big name brokerage.
Right.
So,
So I mean,
and
really, realistically, if I go to Keller Williams and I start off and I do real good, what's the first thing I'm going to do anyway? I'm going to rebrand everything as me. So
Yeah.
I mean, if that's
Exactly.
if that's your end goal to create your own brand, why pay an additional percentage, out of every paycheck to have a logo that consumers don't even recognize? Or I guess really what you're saying there is it isn't that they don't know these brands, and it isn't that they don't recognize the balloon, but they don't care.
They don't care. They don't care. It doesn't mean anything to them. There's no differentiation between Remax, Century 21, Keller Williams, and probably no differentiation between Thompson's Realty. As a small boutique, though, I don't hire anybody with a license and a pulse. I vet the agents that we hire extremely carefully. I only want good, quality, solid people first, human beings, that know what they're doing. And that's not to say that there's franchises that don't do that. I'm sure some do, but a lot of these franchises subscribe to what I call the body count model. They'll hire anybody that can fog a mirror that has a license and hope they get a sale, or they don't even care if they get a sale because they just charge them a desk fee, or they charge them some ridiculous amount of money for E&O, and that's how the brokerage makes their money. We don't fly that way. And because we're small, we can take the time to vet our agents appropriately. I look at our agents as a family. And, Keller Williams talks about the KW family and the big mega camps going on at Keller Williams right now, I assume in Austin.
Yeah.
the 10,000 people or something are there, and they're all drinking the Kool-Aid and having a good time. And that's okay. There's certainly some value to that for the agent, but I am fully convinced from the consumer's perspective that it just doesn't matter to them. We have never lost a listing that I'm aware of or any kind of client because we're not attached to a big name. And I ask her, sometimes we've had two people have asked my wife and I during a listing presentation, they'll say, so you got no Keller Williams or no RE/MAX behind you? And we're like, yeah, and we'll explain to them how that works. And basically every one of those big brand box brokerage offices is independently owned and operated anyway. And it just doesn't mean anything. Now, what I can't say, has the phone not ring? Has someone said, well, I'm not going to call these guys at Thompson's Realty because I'm going to go to RE/MAX? Maybe that's happened. I don't know.
Yeah, but realistically, there's not one agent at one company that we named that's getting enough business from the name to make a living at all. I think what it is, man, is I think that like right now with the evolution of technology, the ever evolving web, that we're dealing with, and the way things are changing so quickly, when you go to a smaller brokerage like yours, you have a speedboat mentality.
Yep.
When you work for a huge company, no matter what industry you're in, it takes a little bit longer to turn a big ship around,
Sure.
Or to make adjustments. So, now after, spending all this time with you, spending the time with Christina, my goal is to dissect information and then filter it and provide what I think would help an agent, with their business the most. And my advice is to find somebody like a Jay Thompson, and not that there's a bunch of them. Maybe that's the problem, Jay, right? There may not be, one on every corner the way there is the other boutiques. But if you can find somebody like a Jay, like a Christina, M Realty, I know comes up a lot.
Yep.
There's all kinds of companies out there that are really taking the, a unique approach. So, just realize that you have options. And for my Keller Williams agents, Coldwell Banker, we love you guys too. You do a great job.
Absolutely.
There's just realize that there's, different models that all work. And I think it's a conversation that was definitely worth having.